Well, hey y'all, happy Monday. Today we're going to be talking about 5 tips for planting your fall garden. I have to be honest, I'm overwhelmed a little bit by my space. I mean, obviously I'm very excited to have such a big backyard, but at the same time I'm spinning with so many ideas, and so it's like there's long-term things I want to do, which I really don't have them ironed out. There's short-term things I want to do, but I feel like I'm kind of in a mess. And then I happen to notice over on my Facebook group, a person posted a question about their struggles with planning their fall garden and how to and what to. So I thought that it would be helpful for me to break down 5 steps for not only you, but also for me to get in motion for planning our fall gardens. So tip number 1, make a list of things that you want to grow, that you want to eat, that you like to eat, or you're curious about eating or using that are in season in the fall and winter here in Zone 9B. Now that's not the same for everybody else in the world, because we're not going to get crazy snow or anything like that. But seriously, put thought into it and we're going to talk about it more next week, but I can also put a link down below to the Maricopa County planting guides for vegetables, and I can also put the one down there for flowers. I think I'm going to put it over on my about page. So take a look at that. Again, I believe next week we'll have some of the first opportunities to start discussing fall crops when we look at planting for August. So look at that list and get an idea of the things that you want to grow and that are going to be in season. Tip number 2 is it's really important to be aware of sun. The sun is going to shine the most in your garden, specifically in late December, because the sun kind of does this shifting thing as it moves throughout the seasons. And so right now there might be places in your backyard that are very sunny and that you have to have shade cloth up, but then come December, that part of your yard barely gets any sunlight at all. And so that's a little bit to do with knowing your microclimates. Also, like, are there trees, like the tree that I'm sitting under in the fall, it's going to lose all of its leaves. So that's going to be a change for this microclimate back here too, because all the plants that are under the shade of this tree will no longer have this tree for shade. This backyard is the north part of my backyard, and I'm real familiar with how the sun worked in my old south-facing backyard. So a little bit of this is new for me, but I really think for me this year, in the front yard may be a place that is really good for as far as getting a lot of sun in the fall and winter. And back here, I think because this tree is going to like I said, lose its leaves, it's going to be a catch-22. So I know I want to do some bales out front, and I know I've got a lot of bags back here. So I'm going to kind of be working in 2 different spaces to get the most out of learning about how the sun spends its time in my backyard during the fall and winter, because these plants that we want to grow, the reason why we can grow them is because we do get so much sun, but they still need a good 6 hours of sun every day, and that's different than the sun that we have now. Like we say that and that's true full sun, okay? That's not anything blocking it. That's the only time in Arizona that we can plant stuff in true full sun, I believe, is in the fall and winter. Otherwise, what we now would put in the shade and get a little protection from the sun or under a shade cloth, that the whole game is going to shift in the fall and winter. So you want to be looking for the space in your garden, the places your beds are, the things that you can do with containers, looking for the spots that get the most sun for the most amount of time in the late. So, and you're going to see that transition as we get further into December. That's where you're really going to see the evidence of what your true sun situation is. Tip number 3 is just start somewhere. And that's something that I'm having to kick myself into gear, is just start somewhere. And when you start somewhere with your planning, whether that's looking at a square bed or a square spot in your garden, or whatever shape your space is that you're working in, the first thing I think that's helpful when you think about planting is think about how big things are going to get. Because during the fall and winter here in zone 9B, we plant brassicas. We plant our broccoli and our Brussels sprouts, our cauliflower, our cabbages, and all of those plants get really big. I mean, if you think about one of my grow bags being this big, if I plant a broccoli in that, then the broccoli is going to overhang that bag like by this much. So if you're working in a bed, or you're working, in a plot that you're working on, then you definitely want to think about giving those plants that you want to plant that are in the brassica family plenty of room. And you're going to want to set them up where they're obviously not blocking anything else in your garden, in your plot, however your situation is, from getting light. Because, there's a lot of herbs that we can plant. There's a lot of flowers. There's carrots. There's radishes. There's peas. But all of those things need their own true space. So definitely think about the size and how different things will work together. Like over at the other place, I was always, it's always easy to put a bunch of herbs in one space. You plant your dill, your cilantro, all your kind of loose, flowing with the wind, gets a little tall herbs can go together in that way. And, but you wouldn't necessarily want to plant like your carrots right where your broccoli are going to come up, because once your broccoli gets ahead of your carrots, then it's going to block off the sun that your carrots would need to go ahead and make carrots for you. Tip number 4 is be willing to adjust and create a situation for yourself where you can adjust. Now, if you've got a raised bed of some sort, that's pretty much where that raised bed's going to be. So there's going to be things in your yard that are just fixed, that you can't move them around. That's why I'm always practicing, trying, and learning your environment with grow bags, because that sets you up to be able to move and shift things around. And also, if you've got grow bags now, then it helps you get going on planting some of these things, because now you can have them in the shade, and later you can move them out into the full sun when they're ready to get into their active growing season. Tip number 5, and I think tip number 5 is the key to planting for fall, and the thing that really makes the whole season an enjoyable thing. And I'm not the best at it, but tip number 5 is plan to plant in succession. Because otherwise, once everything starts finally producing, like once you start getting your broccoli coming in, once you start getting your cauliflower, carrots, you're going to realize, like, gee, I wish I had some more broccoli. Now, some broccolis, once you cut the main stalk, it'll start making side shoots. But once you cut your cauliflower head, it's pretty much done. You can eat the leaves. And again, with the Brussels sprouts, once you cut the stalk, it's there. Once you cut the cabbage, it's done. Your lettuces you can keep picking from. But anything that's not like a lettuce that you can keep picking from, that'll keep growing, mustard green, collard green, something like that, those things will keep growing. But we've got to remember that a lot of the fall crops are not like a tomato plant where you can just keep going and getting another tomato. So the way to really enjoy this season, or really get the most benefit out of this season, is planning to plant in succession. So that means we should that means that every week we're going to plant a little bit of what we want, so that when it starts becoming ready, then every week we'll have a little bit of what we want. Because instead of all of our broccoli being ready at the same time, we'll have broccoli coming in this week, maybe we'll skip a week of planting, and then we'll have broccoli coming in again. So these are my big goals for my fall, is definitely to work to succession plant. And for me, like I said, that's going to start here. I believe it's in August, or maybe August 15th, when we can start planting our fall crops. But I'm really going to seek to make a point and be intentional about every week just going and planting a little bit, like planting 3 broccolis, planting 3 cabbages, and just so that every week I've got a little bit coming in. And I think it's going to help me avoid the overwhelm of having to plant everything all at one time, kind of like we do in the spring and summer. It's going to be a little bit slower, and it's also going to make it easier to deal with the birds, because no matter what, they're still in that active time where they're really looking for any type of water or nutrition in the garden. Lord knows I have actually lost all of my corn. My best efforts over there with trying to block that thing off, they've got in there, and literally the thrashers have thrashed that bed completely. So I have to replant my corn, because I still am committed to getting that 3 sisters garden going over there. And I've got a couple of bags that are over here already under my shade structure. I'm going to throw some melons in them. But otherwise, I'm going to use the rest of my bags to start slowly working into planting the things that I love, like my Brussels sprouts. Like I want at least like 4 bags of Brussels sprouts going. And then, in another week or another week and a half, I'll plant, maybe 3 more, and then this many more, and then this many more. And by doing that, I'll show you in another video, but I got these white waste basket, the wire ones that I'm going to use, because I want to flow with the birds a little bit, but I also don't want to start cutting all of my tulle up into little segments. So I think that's another thing. By succession planting, I'll be able to battle the birds like one little small battle at a time, instead of like them going to battle on my entire garden at one time. So I hope that these tips will help you. And that's just real quick. Make a list. Just, that's always helps me get going. Then be aware of your sunlight, and start somewhere. And then don't forget to think about how big some of these plants get, and then be willing to adjust and try to set yourself up for that. And then, most importantly, set your plan up to succession plant. And hopefully, like I said, for you, it'll bring down the overwhelm. It'll help things pace out, and it'll help us battle the birds a little bit. So, I know I'm starting to drip. Sorry about that. But I like being out here, and I like filming with you out here. So that's our strategy. Okay, let's get together, let's team together. So for all of us that are feeling this kind of end of summer humidity, and like it's like our garden is fighting us, let's band together and just get on this and make going into our fall gardens fun and awesome. And I know this weekend some of us are going to get together and trade some starts, and I think that'll help us get excited. So that's another thing I'm going to start talking to you guys about, is I want to start figuring out when we are going to do our seed swap, plant swap, because I want to do one in the fall, and I'd like to do one maybe January, February. So we've got stuff that we can share in the fall, and stuff that we will be able to share that will be going into the summer and spring garden. So if you are not in my group over on Facebook, definitely do that. Or if you're not on Facebook, another good subscriber friend of mine on here encouraged me to think about doing an email system. So if you're not on Facebook, but you want to stay up to speed on just up to speed on these plant swaps, then maybe send me an email, allpurposemom4, with the, like, as a 4, not 4 spelled. I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know if that's correct. But you send me an email with your email, and then I'll keep you up to speed on what we're doing. And otherwise, over in the group, we'll start figuring out some dates and some parameters, how we want to do it, how we want it to flow. And let's get excited. Let's get excited about going into this fall and winter gardening time, because it's the best time. And if we can push through where we're at right now with being hot and our gardens feeling like they're battling us, then we'll be really happy. Future us will be so happy that we did a little bit every week to get us a really cool garden for the fall. And the cool thing is there's going to be so many flowers that we can plant, and that's when we get all of our good cut flowers for the spring, is by planting them in the fall and winter. So we're definitely going to talk a lot about those flowers the next time we get into talking about what you can plant then. But I'm going to wrap it up with you today. And as always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, for commenting, for interacting with me, for supporting me. I really am, I'm so grateful to be in this space with you. Have the best day ever.